Hi, welcome to Doll Alchemy. This video is going to be a little bit different than our past few. The reason being, I'm going to be showing you a bunch of dolls that I made prior to creating this channel, and then we'll follow up with our normal process of customizing a brand new doll. Basically, the whole reason I got into doll customization in the first place was so that I could make my very own RWBY dolls. If you're not aware, RWBY is a webcomic created by Rooster Teeth. It's, I guess, about 8 years old now in its 8th season, although RWBY called them volumes. So these were the very first dolls that I ever altered, changed, made custom. And because the pandemic has been ongoing for almost a full year now, I've gotten pretty far with the amount of characters that I've made from the series. So the 4 main characters, which I'll talk about in a minute, kind of 2 secondary characters, and then 2 of the villains. So RWBY is actually an acronym of all of the characters' first names. RWBY, Blake, Weiss, and Yang. And here is RWBY and Weiss in their season 4 outfits. And Blake and Yang, actually they're all wearing the outfits that they would have worn between volumes 4 and 6. I also made Pyrrha, Nora, Cinder, who's one of the main villains of the show, and Neo, who's my favorite villain of the show. Yang was made out of a Supergirl doll from the DC Supergirls line, and Blake was a Wonder Woman doll from the same line. Weiss was originally a Disney Elsa doll. Not surprising, they look very similar. And RWBY was made out of a Draculaura, one of the first Draculauras from the Monster High line. So one of the only characters that I have left that I care to make from this series is Winter Schnee, who is Weiss's older sister and one of the participants in my favorite fight sequence in the whole series. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's Volume 3, Episode 3, Winter vs. Crow. Anyway, as luck would have it, my son gave me another Elsa doll for Christmas so that I could make a new doll. As you can see, the newer and the older models of Disney Elsa dolls has much more blonde colored hair. Otherwise, I would have just use the original factory hair like I did when I made my Weiss doll. After I've removed all of her hair, I pop her head in some boiling water so that I can pull it off the neck peg without breaking it. And then I clear out the hair and glue inside of her head with a special tool that I got from Doll Planet. I then remove her factory makeup with 100% acetone, and then I paint her scalp white for when I attach yarn wefts later to make her hairstyle. While that was drying, I set about wrapping up the doll's legs so that I could make the extensions to her boots. So I'm using the boots that the doll came with because they're actually the perfect shape in the heel and toe, but they are thigh-high boots. So I've made the extensions out of Warbler. They're not super perfect right now. I just need to be able to pop them on and off. With that taken care of, I went back and glued on all of Winter's hair, made out of acrylic white yarn. She's basically got like a side bang and one curl that hangs down on the opposite side of her face. And then it's just up in a bun, as she is in the military and it's easier for her to have her hair out of her face, I guess. So I just wrap the ponytail around into a bun, and I've set it off screen with a white straight pin that I just slid right through the bun into her head. I pin back her bangs so that I can spray her face with a few layers of Mr. Super Clear sealant, and I begin my face up. Using watercolor pencils, I've drawn in her eyebrows and done a very pale lip because Winter doesn't wear any lipstick that we can see on the show. And I'm painting in her eyes with acrylic paint. For these dolls, I tried to mimic the way that their eyes look like on the show rather than a realistic human eye. So they kind of have this two-tone sheen to them where it's slightly darker at the top and then lighter at the bottom. And then there's very specific kind of like bubble catch lights that appear when you're seeing them on the screen. It's my intention at some point down the road to redo all of the eyes, except for maybe Blake's eyes. I think they came out best out of my original run of RWBY dolls. Just because those dolls were made at the very beginning of my doll customization career, and I don't think they're up to the standard of my normal work now. But that's a project for a different time and place. Here is the end result. I'm going to seal her whole face once again with Mr. Super Clear sealant. And then I'm going to take out her hair and hit her bangs again with my hair straightener so that they stick right. There you go. Because the doll's legs were a different color than her body, I actually sprayed this part of the doll's body kind of an off-white so that it wouldn't appear different colors under her white pants. The white pants I've just made out of simple cotton, and I sewed on the detail of the, like, where the pant zipper would be in the front with blue thread. And as I'm cheating again with this doll, as I have with all of my others, I think except for the first one I've made for this channel, I'm gluing her vest directly to her torso. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me making the the blouse that she wears under the vest. That's basically just made out of layers of white ribbon that I glued also directly to the doll. Her coat is made out of white linen that I've made in 4 parts. I've glued with my Loctite vinyl glue, blue trim to all of the edges. The final piece of the coat around the back in the shoulder area was also glued directly to the rest of the pieces. I'll be gluing Winter's bell-shaped sleeves directly to her shoulders. It's a sheer fabric with a slit that runs down to her forearms. I gather the fabric at her forearms and sew it there so it maintains its shape. Now I'm going to complete her boots. I close up the seams in her original boots, and I'm going to melt the Warbler in the boot extensions so that they close up around the back as well. All of the gray parts of her boots are going to be made out of epoxy sculpt. So there's the first leg there. While I had my epoxy sculpt out, I also worked on her weapon, which is a dueling saber. It's actually 2 swords in one, but I'm only going to make the one sword. The hilt of the sword will later be made out of RWBY also. I also sculpted her gloves directly onto her arms. Once the epoxy is cured, I set about painting her boots. The main parts are a darker gray, and then the knee joints and the detailing I paint in kind of a navy blue. In order to give the boots a more leather-like appearance, I dust the gray parts with black pan pastels. I seal the boots with a mixture of matte Mod Podge and water. I made her stirrups out of a simple blue ribbon, and I attached that directly to her body. So this is what her jacket looks like with all of the trim glued on. I also painted her gloves black off screen. Next, I'll be putting in some of the smaller details on her coat, including the 2 gray stripes on either side of the lapels, and then also her silver buttons down the front of the vest and the closure in front. The front closure and these back details were made out of gray craft foam that I've painted. By far the most difficult part of this project was making her collar. I resorted to using RWBY rather than fabric just because it was easier to mold into a specific shape. I glued red fabric on the inside of the collar because Winter and Weiss both have red as an accent color in their outfits. Next, I covered the outside of the collar in the same white fabric that the rest of the jacket is made from. And finally, I very painstakingly glued the same navy ribbon that the stirrups are made from along the edge of the top and the bottom of the collar. So this is what it looks like before I attached the front part. Not too shabby, but unfortunately you can't really see the inside of the collar once I put the front on. The necks on the Disney dolls are very short. I don't think I would have had that problem if she was made out of a Monster High or an Ever After High body. And the final touch is to glue on the red jewel that's part of the brooch that closes the collar. So here we have Winter Schnee. I will say that the costume isn't exactly complete yet. There is a fishtail aspect, I guess it's part of her blouse, that hangs down. You see it between her coat and her legs. I haven't found a fabric that will lay correctly to my liking. I didn't want to use the same fabric that her sleeves are made from. It just doesn't crinkle right. So eventually when I come across a fabric that will bend to my liking, I will add that feature in. So winter is complete for now, to be continued. And because I couldn't resist, a sisterly side-by-side comparison. hope you enjoyed this little detour photo shoot with my other dolls from the RWBY line, and that you are entertained watching me create Winter Schnee. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you like this video, please be sure to share it, subscribe to my channel, and like it on YouTube. Be sure to check back soon for more original content. Thanks again.